بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، نحمده ونشكره ونستعين به، ثم الصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء وأشرف المرسلين سيدنا ونبينا محمد وعلى آله الطاهرين وصحبه المنتجبين. Praise and glory be to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Lord of here and the hereafter. We praise Him and thank Him and seek assistance from Him in all our lives for all the blessing that we receive from Allah. We convey our greeting and salutation to the Holy Prophet of Islam, the most noble of all prophets and his pure progenies. Sisters and brothers, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. يقول الله تبارك وتعالى في القرآن الحكيم: أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم، بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم، وأنفقوا في سبيل الله ولا تلقوا بأيديكم إلى التهلكة وأحسنوا إن الله يحب المحسنين. Surah Baqarah, verse 195. And spend of your substance in the cause of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and make not your own hand contribute to your destruction. Do good deeds for the sake of God, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves those who do good deeds. No one by now doubts the serious nature, unfortunately, and the crisis that we are in today due to the coronavirus and its subsequent and consequences. One of the most frequently asked questions that people send emails and text messages is that how is our religious responsibility, whether individually or collectively, with the current crisis of the coronavirus? I would like to take the opportunity today and unpack and discuss a little bit about this critical issue. As a matter of principle, Islamic jurisprudential law or opinions assumes a rational basis. Whenever there is a law, whether it's haram or halal, it assumes that these hurma, which is prohibition or obligation, rests on a rational base. In Surah Al-Baqarah, in this verse that I just recited, although the context is unique in the time of war and the spending of wealth or denying of wealth to those who defend the Muslim community, that somehow indirectly leads to destruction of the community. But the section, the portion that says وَلَا تُلْقُوا بِأَيْدِيكُمْ إِلَى التَّهْلُكَةِ, do not allow your own hand to contribute to your destruction, has been taken by the grand scholars and by ulama to use it to establish a general rule that harm should be avoided in any shape or form. So the avoidance of harm is something that has to be done. Now, we live in a social structure, and naturally our life is not just purely in the context of an individual, but also in a context of a social. We have by now, no matter, even if we don't pay or we haven't paid any attention to the views of the expert, whether it's the doctors, health officials, and so on, The experts have already given their verdict regarding the dangerous nature of this crisis. And they have also identified a number of steps that we really need to protect ourselves both on an individual basis and on a collective basis. One of them is that we, as a way of prevention, we should not expose ourselves in any shape or form by coming into a public and close contact with each other. And because otherwise, by doing so, we become the carrier and the way and the means for spreading these disease around, which becomes, again, we fall under the category of creating harm, and which we, according to the verse and in this chapter of the Holy Quran, we should avoid. So if we break down on a rational basis, number one, we have to stop moving out into group structure. And by the way, today I have received even letters and emails from scholars around, from South Africa to Far East, where they are advising their communities to be mindful of not disobeying the guidelines laid down by the health experts. Even I just on a random base chose 4 or 5 views of the scholars. Sayyid al-Qaid clearly states that we are, in a fatwa that he gave recently, that we are responsible not only for our own health, but for the health and the well-being of everybody else. So we have to be watchful and mindful not to do anything that exposes others to some kind of danger. Ayatollah Sistani, the same thing. Not only in a fatwa that was published online, says that not only one has obligation to protect one's life and one to be mindful of one's own health, is also not to participate in any kind of activity that exposes others. Ayatollah Makarim Shirazi, the same thing. Safi Gul Paigani, the same thing, and a number of other scholars and other ulama. So the fatwas are quite clear, based on a number of reasoning that they have, including this verse. Anything that causes harm, either to oneself or to other people, have to be stepped away from it and should not be done, and it is haram and prohibited. Some people come and say, well, during such a time, we only need to do prayer, to just somehow go for prayer and pray that this kind of things will somehow evaporate or dissipate. The stories that we have, the ahadith that we have in our literature, clearly contradicts this kind of behavior. I'm not stating that we should not pray. Prayer should be part and parcel of what we call a complete approach to avoidance of harm and to finding cure. So there is a story of Prophet Musa والسلام, that one day he was suffering from severe backache that might have been either muscle spasm, that these days we talk about it. And he goes for munajat late at night to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to somehow miraculously cure him. The wahi comes to him that there is such a doctor somewhere in the city. Go and approach and find out what the doctor prescribes to you. And Musa said, oh Lord, you are the Lord, you are the power, you can cure me immediately. He says, but I have created means and ways of getting cure, and these means and ways should not be circumvented. Go to the doctor and listen to the advice and practice the advice of the doctor. We have similar kind of ahadith from Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq salawatullah salamu alayhi. Even we have books on medical books, Tibbul A'imma, which medical books prescribed the kind of either herbs or medicines that we as individuals should use if we suffer from some kind of ailment and we feel poorly. My advice to our listeners, to the sisters and brothers, please avoid getting into contact and in a major crowded area. Sanitize your hand as a way of preventing the spread of the disease. If by any chance, la samahallah, God forbid, anyone falls poorly, immediately consult the doctor and try to stay away from anybody else. And at the same time, we can pray and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect everyone. Let me end here. This is critical issue. We haven't even, China started. It went to the Middle East, Iran, and then Europe. According to World Health Organization, they have identified Europe as major crisis. And there is not a day that we don't hear of a number of either people infected or a number of people that have died. In United States, because there were no statistics taken as the number of infected individuals, we only have seen or heard the tip of the iceberg. We can overcome this crisis if we all become conscious of our religious, individual, and social responsibility. Let us together pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will grant speedy recovery to all those who feel poorly and have been affected by it, and protect us all from falling victim to it. But please, let's work together so that we will not fall victim to it. Thank you very much. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.